嗯，真的很苦的，2个月才发了1000块钱生活费，现在堵大门了。这里是深圳石龙岗马田工地。
The economic challenges extend to various sectors, affecting state-owned enterprises and small businesses alike. Mainland reports of salary cuts in state-owned companies and the struggles of small business owners underscore the widespread impact. The economic downturn is also reflected in changing consumer habits, with people cutting expenses, leading to challenges in boosting domestic demand.
Hello， 朋友们，大家好，我下班了，现在是晚上6点啊。现在这里是杭州彩河的双林路，这是我每天下班的必经之路。这是老小区里面啊非常热闹的一条街啊。但是现在是亚运期间，人不多，车子也不多。现在是6点多一点了，看看公交车上都空了，大公交就1-2个人。这边也是空的，也就1-2个人。现在在公交大车啊，真的都是空车开来开去，对面这辆也是。哎呀，这个浪费啊！现在是高峰期，本来人多啊，你看对面这辆也是大车，里面就2-3个人，那生意就肯定不好。看这些店里面都没什么客人进出，生意是越来越难做了。肯德基啊
KFC, in the past, regardless of which KFC in Hangzhou, there would always be long queues for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, look, it's past 6, and this is a KFC with a colorful exterior. There are some young people who have finished work and gone in, and some are placing orders, but clearly there's no long queue. Many seats inside are also empty. Now it's noon. I got off work around 12:30. On this side is Kuaitao Road. Originally, this area used to be a wholesale market for cultural products and fabrics, and on this side is the Xi'an Hospital. So, this street should have very good business. In the past, it used to be crowded with people and cars.
这个是杭州市西湖区啊比较有名的一个学校，叫宝树塔实验学校。这个要里面读书很难，你看放学了，好多家长在等啊。这里好多吃，但是今天要告诉你们的，这学校旁边啊有那么多的店都关门了。原来嘛，学校旁边的店啊生意都很好的呀。你看这么多店都关门了，哎呦。啊，这里还开了一家青花廊，顺丰收银，顺丰收银现在都快递了嘛。原来开店的，这个店面给了那个快递公司了，这里还开了很多，这里还开了很多，这里也很多关掉了。天安门3路43号，哦呦，原来也有很多店。
It used to be that if you wanted to pass through here, you'd have to wait a long time. But now there's no one on the road, and there are no people passing by the shop entrance. Where is the business coming from? The big cafeteria, actually. It's a fast food restaurant, and many of their dishes are pre-cooked. Eating fast food in Hangzhou is not cheap now. It costs tens of yuan, and even a meal with 2 dishes and 1 soup can cost 20 or 30 yuan. In this big city, it's not much different from the countryside. There aren't many people around. The bus is also empty. The situation for physical stores on the streets of Hangzhou is quite bleak. Where have all the people gone? Those who are working are at work, and those who aren't working are staying at home. Let's go and take a look at the industrial area in Guangdong.
是广东省佛山市顺德区的一个工业区里，今天来这个工业区里转转，看看有没有工厂招工，有没有好一点的工作。工业区我看着厂房非常多啊，不过很多厂房都是空荡荡的，给人感觉整个工业区都冷冷清清的，都已经这么久了，没有看到几个人。
There are not many people here. Many factories have closed their doors or opened them, but there are not many people working inside. There are other factories with better conditions. It's quite deserted. The whole industrial area only seems to have one factory hiring, and other factories are quite empty. Some factories have just 1 or 2 people working, and some can't even see anyone in the entire factory, only goods. Is this an industrial area? Why does it look like a ghost town? The once bustling and prosperous scenes have disappeared. What happened to the enthusiasm that used to fill these places? Now, how did it become like this? Here are a couple of factories, but similar to the ones before, there are basically no workers inside. It's deserted. Nowadays, the factories have been on a break for a few days. If there are still orders from last month, it's manageable, but there are no new orders this month. The shutdown has lasted for a week, and we're uncertain when it will end. Foxconn has suspended production for a duration of 10 months. Is it not true that they are likely to recommence operations after this period? Historically, Foxconn has a pattern of temporarily halting production but eventually resuming. This is a substantial undertaking involving a workforce of tens of thousands, akin to securing employment either through personal efforts or connections with your spouse, child, or relatives. The magnitude of this workforce is noteworthy. Additionally, the temporary cessation of Foxconn's operations has repercussions on various related industries, such as restaurants associated with Foxconn, leading to disruptions across the entire supply chain. Consequently, this has an impact on those who typically wield control in the market. Recently, there's been a strange event. The residential area in Guangzhou, Yuzhou City, which used to house 100,000 Foxconn employees, suddenly became empty. The dormitory buildings are deserted, and the over 100 shops on the commercial street are either closed or available for rent. There are rumors that Foxconn in Shenzhen is dismantling production lines and moving them to India. They have reportedly dismantled 8 production lines already. Many labor intermediaries have also received notices stating that Foxconn is no longer hiring temporary workers and is clearing out part-time workers. Despite Foxconn's response claiming normal operations, there seems to be some underlying issues. Foxconn has had assembly plants in India before, but their recent expansion, including manufacturing Apple phones, has been substantial. The production of Apple phones in Foxconn's Indian plants is gaining importance. Many criticize Terry Gu for forgetting his roots and being ungrateful. However, the reality behind this situation is more complex. The Foxconn incident reflects the nationwide difficulty in recruiting workers and the structural transformation of manufacturing jobs. The manufacturing industry is undergoing irreversible changes. Many factories suddenly stopped hiring this year, causing a shift from the usual peak employment in spring. The job market for manufacturing is tough this year, and people are lamenting the difficulty of finding jobs in the industry. Chinese people are cutting expenses, and the prospects for consumption are crucial for China's economic growth. During the 8-day-long Golden Week holiday in October, the average travel expenses per person remained below pre-pandemic levels. Coupled with the crisis in real estate and insufficient economic confidence, it is challenging to boost domestic demand, keeping China's prices on the brink of negative growth in the second half of the year.
大卖场、大型商超的辉煌时代就结束了吗？就这么没落了？ 今天中午我们家宝宝放学比较早，2点多就放了。我特意带他来这个大润发超市来逛一下，因为今天他是最后一天营业，以后他就不开了，关门了。看好啊！快点走，快点走，快点走！他要打包了，阿姨要打包了。
离我远一点啊，小朋友。
快过来，快过来，那个阿姨要。
啊，如果万一倒下来的话，你得看好啊。
那哪些东西是打折的啊？
不打折。
哦，玩具不打折是吧？
它本身这个轻便就不打折，不是说玩具不打折。
哦。
它都调到其他地方去买，它怎么会打折呢？它那么多大润发可以给你调来。
现在这些营业员他们都在打包。
With the rise of e-commerce and the impact of live streaming on various platforms in recent years, it's tough for physical stores to survive now. What's on the second floor? Clothes and food items are on the upper floor and on the third floor. I'm going to check now. This area has been completely emptied. The third floor is even emptier than the second. Only vegetables are half price, right? Just now, the place selling vegetables is all half price. A survey by Bain Company of 3,000 Chinese shoppers found that, due to economic uncertainty, over 3/4 of respondents plan to reduce spending this year or at least maintain current spending levels. The Associated Press reported that business at a billiards hall in Kaohsiung District, Beijing, owned by Shi Gangchen, has been declining, and he attributes it to the poor economic situation, stating that there are fewer customers and sales are only 40% of pre-pandemic levels. The situation in Guangzhou's Old City area is also doomed, specifically on the famous Shanghai pedestrian street, where there is a noticeable decrease in foot traffic compared to previous years. Despite the economy seemingly recovering after the pandemic, businesses are closing, and even those still open are struggling with low customer flow. The economic challenges extend to various sectors, including state-owned enterprises. There are reports of salary cuts, even up to 30%, in some state-owned companies.
还有很多劳务中介呢也收到通知，说富士康不招临时工了，并且还在清退小时工。虽然富士康出来回应啊，说目前的运行正常，无风不起浪。其实呢，之前富士康在印度就有过代工厂，不过呢规模还比较小。近年来呢，扩建的力度也是越来越大，并且呢已经开始代工生产苹果手机了。如今富士康印度厂区产的苹果手机是比重越来越重。对此，很多人说呢，郭台铭忘恩负义，没有底线。事实上呢，这背后隐藏的真相远没有那么简单。富士康事件的背后是进厂难正在全国蔓延。
午市12点钟，奈雪的茶生意有点一般，没什么人，是吧？也没看到来取外卖的人。商场的运营还是有点问题的。当你踩到东西放在这儿，差不多已经有半小时了，商场的保洁也不来弄。从这个角度来说，商场的运营就很一般，特别在主干道上，为了商场呢都想把它做成景，但这个景的打造我觉得很一般。听到水声，但是感觉有点 low 啊，跟西安的赛格没法比。特色在商场里面建了一个植物园，放了很多假的这个动物模型。那我觉得这种它会比较吸引家庭用户和小朋友，对年轻人、网红之类的是不愿意来。做了一个冰雪世界的活动，叫超级艺术节，但我觉得它跟艺术不太相关。飞大厨的整个品牌设计还是可以的。你们看，那个飞大厨他把辣椒炒肉的名档放到了前面，以前他不是这样设计的。这样设计的原因呢是什么？告诉消费者他们的东西食材新鲜，但实际上他们懂的都懂。这是个秀场，但是对于普通消费者来说还是有效的。我见过那么差的哥老关，顶流商圈的哥老关，一桌没有。
The top-ranked mall in terms of dining, actually. During lunch, the data is normal for the top mall. The mall should be very bustling at lunchtime, but it's quiet. When the streets are eerily vacant and stores lack customers, the disappearance of the bustling crowd prompts questions. Where has everyone gone? And what fate awaits our top-tier mall? Fuzhou is definitely experiencing consumer downgrading this year. By building a whole forest with one loss, it's obvious. Through my experience of delivering takeout this year, I can see that consumption in Fuzhou has really decreased. What did people used to order? They used to order a 30 yuan beef rice, a bowl of Pew Lion braised noodles, and 2 oyster cakes. Now it's different. Now, people mostly order around $2, $3, Usually, it won't exceed $3. People mostly order these kinds of meals that only satisfy their basic needs. The best performing takeaway shops around here are those that sell fast food, and the prices are basically around 10 yuan. Because our delivery drivers can see the prices. Now, I deliver about 50 or 60 orders a day, and 40 of them are all these kinds. The ones around $1.5. I've noticed that compared to last year, the price of meals has decreased by at least 10 yuan. After all, many people haven't made money, so they try to save as much as possible on meals. Now there are also more people delivering takeout on the streets. Originally, those who ordered takeout last year are now out delivering takeout this year. I know some people might not be happy, saying I'm being negative, but these are things I have truly and personally experienced. I've been thinking, how can an ordinary person like me break through? Save money is saving money. Looking at how many months our shop has been open, there was no one at the beginning. It's so desolate to see our beautiful street. The restaurant downstairs in our building that opened a new barbecue place. And many small business owners, still trying hard to keep their shops running, are openly expressing how tough it is. They describe their businesses as really tough and barely hanging on. Initially, they were hopeful that things would get better after the pandemic, but now it's clear that the pandemic was just the start of their problems. Workers are dealing with unemployment and pay cuts, and business owners are struggling because there aren't enough customers. This isn't just about not making money. It's causing them significant financial losses. China has vigorously promoted its influence globally, involving not only the economic sphere, but also diplomacy and the military. Even though there have been some short-term victories, this overly aggressive approach has raised doubts and hostility from the Western world and Japan, which originally held favorable attitudes towards China. What we see now is the most embarrassing scene in China's economy in decades. At the beginning of this year, China decided to abandon its strict zero-infection policy for the new coronavirus, leading to a significant increase in consumer spending in the short term. However, apart from that, for most of 2023, China's economic performance has been worrisome. The latest data released in October has not changed this situation. The Purchasing Managers' Index for manufacturing dropped to 49.5 in October, lower than September's 50.2, and far below last February's 52.6. This data is particularly noteworthy because when the index is below 50, it indicates that the economy is contracting comprehensively. Similarly, the non-manufacturing PMI also dropped from September's 51.7 to October's 50.6. Looking at the order data from manufacturers, both domestic and foreign buyers are concerned. Their orders have experienced varying degrees of decline. The decrease in orders from foreign buyers is indicative of economic frailty in Europe and the United States, attributable to their anti-inflation monetary policies, particularly the decision to raise interest rates. Concurrently, the dwindling orders from foreign buyers to Chinese manufacturers underscore a diminishing trust from Western governments and the business community in Chinese sources. This trend is further confirmed by China's export data from the General Administration of Customs, which exhibits a persistently sluggish pattern. While the recently released September data shows a modest 5% increase compared to August, it still remains approximately 10% lower than January of the previous year. Furthermore, as indicated by the recent Purchasing Managers' reports, the data for October is anticipated to continue its downward trajectory. The reduction in orders from domestic buyers reflects, to a certain extent, the vulnerability of China's exports. Despite the Chinese government's emphasis on transitioning towards a more internally focused economy, its impact has been minimal, and domestic production activities continue to heavily rely on the purchasing power of foreign businesses. Additionally, the decrease in domestic orders is also rooted in the hesitancy of Chinese private enterprises to expand their production capacity, a consequence of the uncertainties arising from the stringent zero-infection measures against the new coronavirus implemented by the Chinese government over the years and the recent apparent hostility towards private enterprises. Beyond the disheartening economic data, the challenges faced by major real estate developers such as Evergrande and Country Garden exacerbate the ongoing economic friction. Firstly, the inability of this substantial economic sector to meet its obligations has resulted in financial losses restricting the financial system's support for emerging companies. Secondly, the uncertainty stemming from these losses has dampened the enthusiasm of Chinese families to purchase houses. Indeed, while new home sales have rebounded from the August low, October's new home sales of $55.6 billion, according to China Real Estate Information Corporation, still reflect a 30% decline compared to the same period last year and fall below the pre-COVID-19 peak. In response to this unsettling scenario, and after missing several opportunities, the Chinese government has initiated efforts to stimulate economic growth. However, these efforts appear insufficient and have come rather belatedly. In an attempt to encourage individuals and businesses to increase loans and consumption, the People's Bank of China has cautiously lowered interest rates. Yet, these monetary policy measures, reducing only by a few percentage points, face challenges in countering the potent forces suppressing consumer spending and business investment. The Chinese government has also introduced plans to reinforce infrastructure investment, a strategy previously successful in stimulating the economy. The latest initiative authorizes loans of 10 trillion yuan, equivalent to $137 trillion, to fund additional infrastructure projects, especially in provinces affected by floods. So far, the impact of these efforts remains inconspicuous. Skepticism arises as to whether, in an economy with a total value of about $18 trillion, this loan program is a mere drop in the ocean. Roughly a decade ago, China appeared poised to surpass the United States in economic size and strength, positioning itself as the world's leading economy. At that time, widespread anticipation surrounded China's ascent to a leadership role on the global stage, explicitly stated as the country's historical commitment. Since then, China has made some progress in these areas, but as the economic growth driving all of this heads towards collapse, now China's future looks less promising than before and seems unlikely to achieve its grand goals. China's economy is undeniably on a downward trajectory.